You ready? 3, 2, 1. Don't! Good day, fellow Russians. All right. RushFanAndLive.ca. Another project I've been asked to do again is try to get a board to boot. Okay, let's just go through the quick motions here. I have a Bally board here. It's for a future spa. It's for a game that I actually have that I want to bring back from the proverbial dead. So we're just going to do some basic life support, or check for life support anyways, on the board. So I'm using a computer power supply, and what I'm doing is hooking up, and I'll explain what I'm doing, just to see where we are with this board. So I've done this on another video. This is a computer power supply. It gives you 5 volt, it gives you 12 volt, it gives you ground. All these boards work on 5 volt, 12 volt ground. The reason I love the Bally's is they help you kind of fix themselves. This flashing green light will tell you if the game's going to boot, if the board's going to boot, and if it doesn't, it kind of gives you some ideas on what the problems are. So anyway, you're putting ground, so black to test 0.4. You're putting 5 volts, or red, to test 0.5. It's easy enough to remember, right? And then you're putting 12 volts to test 0.2. So the test points are all marked. Let me just show you. So there's the 12, that's test 0.2, easy enough to remember. Again, 12, there's a 2 in there. Test 0.5 is right there. See, TP5. And then TP4, which is your ground. Okay, and we're going to turn on, let me turn this light off. Turn the board on, see what happens. Yikes, we get that proverbial dreaded solid green light. So there's a whole bunch of things that could be wrong with it. Before we get into those details, let's do some sanity checks here. First off, we're going to see if the board is jumpered properly. Now this is a board I got from a pile at Swap Meet. And again, I checked the ROMs, and the ROMs told me that it was for a future spa. It looks complete. It doesn't look like it's molested, so I'm kind of thinking, okay, we should be good to go. Now, where I go to get a lot of my information from is a site called Action Pinball. I think you can see that. Yeah, let's turn that off. All right, so now where we're going to go is we're going to check the jumpers on it. So down at the bottom, we go to Future Spa. Here we go. Now it's going to say with a -17 modified. We're not doing a -17. It's a -32, which, or sorry, a -35, which is signified right here. If it says -35, that's the board specific to Future Spa, Kiss, a whole bunch of other ones. So we won't talk about -17. -17 are mostly chime games, like Evil Knievel, power play games like that. So now it's going to say to us, okay, U1, U2, U6. What are those? There's U1, there's U2, there's U6. They're actually printed on the board. They're silk screen. So you see 1, U2, U6. This is U9. This is U10. This is U11. This is U7. That's U8, I think. Yeah. Anyway, so they're all printed on the boards for the chips we're looking for. So basically what it's saying here is if you have chip 781-6, 781-8 in U1 and U2, so this is the right here, you'll say 781-7, 781-9, so there's 781-7. You can see that, right? 781-9. And then the U6 chip, which is this one, they're all the same. 720-35. It's all written right there. What it's saying is you got to check to make sure that these jumpers are proper. So I'll show you what the jumpers are. I do a video where I show you how to jumper a game to accept universal ROMs, which are the 2732s is what they're called. But basically what you're going to do is you're going to look here. It's going to say, check to make sure that these are jumpered. And if they're jumpered properly, then that gives you a better idea whether you have some hope in getting this thing to boot. If it's not jumpered right, you're probably not going to get it to happen. So just double check to make sure that all the jumpers are proper. Check them off. So that's number one. That's first thing to go. Okay, number two is we have a complete board. Okay, now this board is kind of ugly. I don't know what this white stuff is. I don't think it's battery corrosion, just because it's kind of splattered all over the board. So what I want to do is I want to remove all the sockets, the chips that we can, and I want to give this thing a vinegar bath. So here's my socket remover. I do this on another video where I get another board to work, and I used a big screwdriver, and somebody commented, nice puller, and I got a chuckle out of it. It's what I had in hand. But so sometimes lifting these things and putting them back in gets these boards to boot. But if you look at this chip here, it's kind of corroded. It's black. Looks pretty original. So I want to take them all out, and I'm actually going to mark them just for my own sanity. Makes it a little easier for the ones that aren't marked. So I'm just going to put a piece of tape on it. And again, if you look here on the side, it is marked. Okay, just take your chip, piece of plastic. There is no shame in doing this, I'll tell you right now. U9. Now U10 and U11, these two right here, they're interchangeable. You can swap them out, it's not a big deal. So I don't have to mark them. Wow, these things are stuck in there good. See if there's any broken legs. No. But they're pretty corroded. Pretty ugly. And the reason we're taking these out is when I wash the board, I want to be able to get inside these sockets, which we're probably ended up changing anyway. Oh yeah, look at that. Nothing broken there, which is good. Okay, here's the 5101. Suspiciously new. And I'll show you something in a minute. These ones they're marked, so they're going to be easy enough to remember where they go, and I'll explain in a second. I'm sure there are chip pullers, but I've just been using little screwdrivers for the longest time. And as long as you pull them up, don't pry them because you will bend the pins. So you'll see how I'm kind of favoring all four corners as I lift. The only real important ones are these three. These are the ROMs that are original and you can't duplicate these. You basically have to replace them. And so luckily, all the legs are still attached.
Warning, warning, warning.
And they're marked as well. So this one says U6. This one is U2. That one is U1. And so on and so forth. So I'll put these chips in a very safe place. I'm not holding out much hope for especially these three sockets here, just because of where they are in relation to the battery. I'm sure you've heard the expression battery corrosion, battery acid. It's not really an acid, it's a base. It's an alkaline. So to neutralize it, we throw acid at it. So let me just put these chips away in a safe place. Just clean up the bench a little bit, and we'll get to part two. Okay, I put the chips away. These auget sockets, they're not bad. What happens with them is, not just these ones, but all the sockets, they corrode. And when they grab the chip, they're only grabbing it on one side. So you saw how the chip was put down. Some of them only have pins on the one side that grab the chip. So the better ones have both sides, and I'll show you those. So this one I think is completely roached. So there is a trick we can do. We got to be careful as we're going to lift up the plastic and see how bad. Now you got to be careful here because you don't want to put too much stress. I don't care about breaking the pins, but I do care about lifting the traces. So I'm just going to try it. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So I should be able to leverage off here. Yeah, you can see what's going on. Okay. Yeah, those are pretty ugly. Now I've seen some before where a quick clean, believe it or not, with some very light sandpaper actually cleaned off the ends enough for the chips to fit in there and work, but I don't think we're going to have this kind of luck with this one. So let me pull off this one. We might as well do that. I don't like doing all of them at once. I'm going to be brutally honest with you. I like to do them one by one because 9 times out of 10, that solves the issue for the board not booting. Sometimes it's one chip. If you go back to one of the other videos I did, you'll see that there was a pin that was just one pin was tarnished, and that was enough to stop the board from booting. But I don't think it's going to be bad economy to remove these ones either. Okay. Yeah, that one's pretty ugly. Actually, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna because you can put these back on. So as long as when you take them off, you take them off in such a way that you're not damaging any of the pins, or you're not damaging any of this. You can just, I'm not gonna do it, but you just put it on, push it back down, and you'll be good to go. So let me take this one off as well. Again, I'm pulling up. I'm not using the screwdriver. I'm not putting it against here and prying that way because you could damage a trace doing that. So just standing back a bit and then pulling up. Okay. Okay, that one's not too bad, but yeah, these pins, oh, see, look, very weak. It shouldn't break off that easy. So anyway, let's take this one off as well. Okay. I didn't even look back here. Oh boy. This could change the equation a little bit here. This is pretty bad. Okay, you know what? We're into it so far for about 20 minutes, so I guess we're going to keep going. I'm going to grab some household vinegar, and I'm going to show you what I do to neutralize, and then we're going to wash the board. Okay, what we're going to use here is just regular vinegar, I've lifted the board up. I've put it on a slant. I don't want to get any liquid in these switches here because they won't dry. Normally I would do this on a nice hot summer day, and I would bring it outside, let it bake in the sun once I've done all the cleaning. But I'm just going to pour the vinegar on the corrosion zone here. I'm going to follow up with a toothbrush. I think it's, you know what, I'm going to bring it up and see if it's bubbling. A bunch of things will definitely need to be replaced. And I'm going to do over here as well. Might as well. Again, I'm not going to get the game setting switches wet. Okay. Let's get some paper towel here because I want to flip it around. Then do the back side. Okay. Okay, I'm aggressive, but I'm not destructive when I'm doing this, okay? Flip it around. Good again, there's nothing that got in there. All right. So, this is step one. Step two is I'm going to go rinse it off with just water. And then step three is I'm going to pour alcohol, rubbing alcohol, because that displaces water and evaporates any liquid again in the event that any of these switches got wet, which is, I'm pretty sure didn't. Okay. Okay. Isopropyl 70. I'm not going to go too crazy. Just let it sort of creep its way through. Let that go. Okay. So what I'm going to do is we're going to start removing these pins, but I'm going to take off all the big caps that keep bending back and forth because I'm afraid they'll break. And why replace them or buy new ones? Well, it's good practice to put new ones in, but it's not like they grow on trees, right? So, and then I'm going to hang this up near my water heater, actually. So that part of the house is pretty warm. It'll definitely help dry off this board a lot quicker. And then we will bring you back. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We are going to go over all the spots that I want to take any components off of. We're going to put new solder into it to try to break up this gray stuff here. I'm also going to change Q2, Q1, and Q5 when the time comes. I don't know, this isn't going to be easy. Oh, and I'm also going to take off these big capacitors just because we're going to be flipping the board back and forth a lot and I don't want it to break off or damaged capacitor. I have lots of other boards that I can pull from if I need to, but why tempt fate? So let's go to town with some solder. Everyone. Don't worry about it getting too sloppy, because what's going to happen is when I go over it with the solder, I'm going to go suck it all out again with a special tool that I have, a hackle. Okay, I'm going to do this for the rest of the pins. Yes, this is going to take some time. And I'll bring you back when I bring out the solder sucker. Okay, I've gone through the exercise of putting solder blobs on every pin that we need to remove. And I've also done the sides as well, because they were pretty ugly. So now, and one thing I should say, I don't like this carpet bomb approach. Typically, it's one chip per attempt, for lack of a better word. Sometimes I'll get a board that'll flash like twice, and that's when, okay, I got some life out of it. And then if I have some sketchy sockets, I'll replace the one socket, put the chip back in, turn it on, oh bang, it works. I got my second flash, I got whatever the case may be. But in this case, the board that gave me no signs of any life. So that's why I definitely wanted to do these, and I thought, you know what the heck. There's some sketchy parts to these parts as well, so I might as well just replace them all. And I'm going to replace this 555 timer. How do I know it's 555 timer? It says right on it, if we can see it. Which, yeah, 555. I'm going to replace that because that looked a bit corroded as well. So this might be in vain, but at the end of the day, I will have, I don't know, maybe $10 into it with the chips, with the solder, with the sockets that I'm going to be replacing, and my time. Obviously, time is money, but when you're doing something that you consider to be fun, hey, what's the worst that can happen? So let me get up my hackle, and we'll bring you right back. All right, now, you don't really need anything that fancy. You could use one of these old school solder suckers. And what you do is you push in on it. You heat up the solder that you want to remove. You put it on. You press the button. And the pump sucks the solder out. I use this all the time. Like that 555 timer, there's only 8 solder legs that I would do. I'd probably pull this out instead of pulling out what I'm going to show you. But to do all these pins, you know what? You run the risk of lifting the traces. So these are the traces. You know, it's copper that runs through these things, and the last thing you want to do is heat it up so much that you lift it off, and then you get a break in continuity. So that's when you pull out this thing. I've shown it on other videos. It is a fantastic tool. This is the Hackle brand. I know they make other brands as well. But all it does is, it's got the little hole there. This whole element heats up. You put it up to where you want to remove. It heats up the solder. And boom, the component will fall out. can see that we've got a collection. Let's see how lucky we are. Should I just do this one here? Yeah, so if you look, the majority of them already fallen out. Sometimes you got to go over them again. Do not pull. Okay, so these two are a bit stuck. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce some solder again. Okay. And then try it again. There we go. There we go. So all removed. Okay, I'm going to do this for everyone now. And then I'm going to show you how we cleaned up. Okay, the Hakko's starting to struggle a bit. So it tells me this thing must be, oh yeah, all kinds of goodness going on in there. So let's give it a quick clean out. I cannot begin to tell you how hot this thing is right now. Okay. Give it a good cleaning when we're done with it. There we go. Back at it. Okay. So 99.9% removed. There's a couple I missed, so I got to go back at it, but here is the aftermath of removing everything. All right, so here's what we're going to do now. You're going to get yourself a fiberglass pen, pencil, whatever you call them. And we are going to scrape off all the oxidation off all of the chips, but you're going to do it carefully. You can do it in such a way that we're not going to be breaking any of the traces that either enter or exit the socket. Okay, so you see all these little fine lines? Those are copper traces that move, I guess, the kilobyte electricity all over the place to get the board to do what it's supposed to do. So, a couple of things I use. Get yourself a brush. Again, this is critical, the fiberglass. Pencil pen, toothbrush. You can use sandpaper, depends on how aggressive you want to be. And I've done sandpaper before, but it does get it gets a little tricky. So here's what we're going to do. You're going to go up and down, don't go side to side. Side to side, you'll run the risk of breaking a trace. They do run up and down. So what we're going to do is get this nice and shiny. Okay, I'm gonna do this in sections, and then we got to do the back, right? So let's just see. So it looks pretty decent. If you see a hole, like, let me see if I can zoom in here. This one, right where my finger's at. It's not exactly clear of debris. I don't want you going back on there with either the solder sucker or a soldering iron, whatever the case may be. The less opportunity to introduce heat onto these pads is the better chance of not having one of these lift and you having to do what's called a stitch, which I'll show you later what that's all about. Okay, so just take your time, again, up and down. Oh, so yeah, so if there is some blockage in the hole, you can go get a really small drill bit and clean it out that way. So, okay, now let's do this one here. Let me just lift you up a bit because it's, there we go. Okay, what we got here is, I don't know what it is, 1970s dust and fiberglass. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it over to the sink or the toilet. And I'm just going to brush all this off into something that I can dispose of, you know, properly, because I don't want this dust flying around in the air. So I'll be right back. Check out that dust that poured through the holes. Nice, eh? So let's just clean that up. Okay. Now let's do the back. And it's the same thing. Up and down. The back's really going to show a better transformation, I think, just because we're going to go from gray to silver. All right, all nice and clean now to make it all nice and dirty again. So what we're going to do, here's you're going to use some sandpaper. We're going to scrape off very gently this layer of gray corrosion up until, let's say about here. And the purpose behind it is to get to the nice clean copper. So we are sure that we have good connectivity on the grounds. Okay, so let's grab, this is, what is this, 150? Don't be an animal, just careful. Got a big blob of solder there. Okay, this side, it kind of gets tricky. So again, here's the ground, touches a lot here, but you can see some of the tributaries here. Okay, here. And then it turns out to be okay here. So you got to be, you know, aggressive, but careful, right? Just want to make sure you're taking out all the battery corrosion areas, and hopefully it doesn't flare up again. And I want to make sure that, again, these tributaries have a good ground. Okay. All right, one final wash. Again, I'm just going to put it under water. I have no way of really showing it, but I'm going to just put this part under water just to clean all this dust off on both sides. Dry it off, and then we'll get to some soldering. Bye-bye, 1970s. It's a great decade. Okay, let's start soldering. But what we're going to do first is look at the traces. We got a bunch of lifted pads on this side, even though we tried our best not to lift them. So right here is one, there's two, there's half of one. And on this side, we have the potential for a short. Now, is this little piece supposed to be here? I don't know. That's why you should take pictures beforehand. Luckily, I have the luxury of having another board, a junk board. And according to this one, it's right at the V here. There is no jumping. What I mean by jumping is if you look here, see how these are tied together? Okay, that's what we're looking for. So a couple of things we got to do. Number one, somehow I got to move this piece without breaking anything. So let me use a knife here. Okay. All right. Gone. Okay, so now let's see how critical these are back here. I know what these are. These are just kind of pads that go through and clamp on the other side. So it's going to be, what is this, the bottom right. So when we flip it, it'll be the top right. Okay, so this is a top via. So here's the top right. Are you seeing this? Yeah. Okay, so this is attached. This is attached to this line here. All of these are actually attached to the line. Okay, and this one is a half. So what we got to do is when we solder it, so that one's attached to the half. That one's okay. This one here, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's going to be 4 to the top, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's this one here. Okay, so we just got to make sure that this connects to its point. And I'll show you how we're going to do that. And what else do we got going on here? Okay, and this half, that half, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 from the bottom. That's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, so we got to just make sure that when we solder, see what happens, we're going to solder from behind, so the solder needs to wick up and wet this whole surface here to stick to the chip. Okay? So that's how we're going to double check to make sure that it worked. So let's put our chip, well, let's put our flux in first. Flux in first. Wow, that sounded pretty good. Now remember, there is a right way and a wrong way to put a chip in. And I like to follow that same sort of nomenclature here. If we look, we see a little nib there, and the board also shows a little nib. So let's follow the nibs, okay? You're not forcing anything in. If you force it, this thing is going to pop up. Okay. Now, when we go to solder, we are going to grab a piece of sponge to hold it so that all of our little leggy things, where are you guys here? Here we are. All these little leggy things stick out. Okay. That's good. All right, they're all up. Okay. Seen me do this in other videos. You're going to start, the way I start is I start on the outside and I work my way in. But I want to secure the outsides first. That way I know the chip is in there nice and tight. And the one thing I like to try to do is as the solder, I move the leg back and forth. And you'll see the solder sometimes bubbling, which tells me it's flowing into that cavity underneath there. Okay, this one, I think we lost a leg, or a pad, I should say, because it's just kind of sitting there. So let me just flip it over. Yeah, it was a ground. It's got a nice blob there, which is fine. I'll show you how we're going to check for shorts and all that as well. Okay, so we've got this secured. Let's start rocking and rolling. Nice clean tip. And work on an angle that works for you. Again, I'll start in the middle. Move that around. Just move you for a second so I can look. Okay. They look like they've all been secured now. Let's go on this side. Yeah, I can see. Now we're going to check to see if, again, the solder wicked up and hooked onto the chip. Voltmeter, just set it to continuity. See the little thing that looks like a speaker? And when you touch the leads, it buzzes, right? So you're going to check every leg and make sure you hear that buzz. You can check it up here too, because that's where it goes to. Not all of them, but most of them. Because that's ideally what you want. Okay. Perfect. All right, so we know that the solder went from underneath right across every one. Now we're going to check to make sure that I didn't bridge any. And the way that we're going to do that is just go next to each other. Okay. Oh, let's see what I'm doing here. Just go side by one. Perfect. So if underneath we soldered these two together, this is testing for it. Okay, so let's just go 2 by 2. Perfect. Okay. Now we only have, how many more? Quite a few more. We got these, and then the big mamas, the 340 pounder. So I'll bring you back if anything interesting comes up. The only potentially interesting thing that may come up is, let's look at, we'll look at this one here. See how we only have half? Let's just say that complete pad was missing. Completely gone. So we have this trace that pad needs to attach to. What we would do is a stitch. We would literally take a piece of wire, put it from underneath the board, reach around, and attach it to the line to save that. Now, if I come across it, I'll let you know. Well, actually, I'll bring you back if I come across it. So, okay, let's clean off the chips. So, what you're looking for, well, first of all, this one's done. The leg's already kind of killed, and you can see it's got a case of the rusties right there. I think you can see that. So, it's finished. Now, if we have, well, you know what? Okay, we're going to keep this. I'm not going to do what I need to do on it because I have a bit of a nub stick in there. So I can install this and I can try soldering on a leg. But these parts are rusty as well, so let's just put this on the side of better luck next time. Okay, let's get into the chips that we cannot, well, you can't make these anymore. You got to buy them used. So these are the, I think they're called masked ROMs. what I want to do is I want to take off all the tarnish on the little legs or toes or appendages here. So this is how I do it. Put it down on a flat surface. Bring out that mighty fiber pen and go to town on it. Make sure, I'll get you a better view. Make sure you go with the leg and you'll see it's taking off the tarnish. Okay, avoid trying to clean it this way because you're just going to break off the legs. So nice and flush. And make sure those legs are down solid. Warning, warning, warning. Okay, so you can see how nice and shiny those are now, as opposed to this side that are still, there's a lot of tarnish on them. Now I'll show you how they clean up here. So again, same deal. Okay. Okay, those are nice and clean. All right, now, this is actually a guide off the playfield. These work good. Put it in. It's nice and tight, as you can see. Make sure it's on there good. And you will see the tarnish come off. Again, down, 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 down. Do not go that way. Bad things will happen. So I think you can see how nice and clean that is, as opposed to that side, okay? Okay, I think that looks pretty good. Let's compare it to a non-clean one so you can see what we're going for, okay? All right, I'm going to do that to these chips. This one looks kind of weird. It looks like it's corroded. It's got this white chalkiness on it. Oh, another thing I do now is fix any leg that's kind of a bit cockeyed here, just to make sure they're all nice and parallel to each other. Just takes a little coaxing. You don't have to go too aggressive, and this is what I'm using. So okay, let me do that. Okay, I will bring you back. Oh, let me show you the board. So I've already put in the 5101 and the U6, but these are basically all the sockets on the board. So pretty clean. Came out pretty good. Now what I tested, again, I showed you on the multimeter, I tested to make sure that, for example, this, let's go over here. the top of this is connected to right there. See that all these little points here? I checked with the meter, so I know I've got from the top, underneath, and to the solder pads. I know that's all done. I don't know if we've got 100% communication from chip to chip or through what are called the vias, like over here. So it comes here, it goes here, it goes under the board, and it follows its merry way to something else. So I haven't gone through that exercise because I'm going to throw some oh, and I've also put the capacitors back in. I'm going to throw some caution to the wind here and put all the chips in it, hook it up to the power supply, turn it on and see what happens. See if it flicks on and starts doing its flashing thing. So we're moments away from that. I will do that live. Okay, so I'll bring you right back. All right, might have a bit of a problem here. The fourth chip from the top, this one here, started to go a bit wonky on me. So what I did is I put a dab of solder on it to keep that leg as tight as possible. So I guess we'll see what happens. Warning. So I'm actually going to put this in the board right now. Okay. Well, it's in. Let's see what happens. So again, U2, U2. All right. Let's carry on. So U1 is done. And this one is done as well. Might as well pop in the U1. It's just gonna go right in. Make sure none of the legs pop out. So you want to double check to make sure they're all in. And remember, they're all marked. That's the number one, and they should have a tab. This one does not have a tab, but it's got number one, and that is for here. Okay, I think what I'm gonna do is I'll sort these two out later. I'm gonna go grab a couple of known ones, and we'll fire it up. So I'll bring you back in a minute. Okay, let's go for broke. These are all the supposedly good chips that I've scavenged out of games over many years. Tested in other game boards, and they've tested out good. So let's see what happens here. Okay, I haven't tried this yet, so I'm giddy with anticipation. We will do a final sanity check. So ground goes here. TP5 goes there. 12 volt goes TP2. All right, let's make sure that all the chips are, there's a notch, there's a notch, there's a notch one, notch, 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 notch. Okay, so other than the fact that I know for a fact I've replaced all the sockets, I don't know if these chips work. I don't know if there's any continuity between the boards, so if it works, awesome. If not, well, I guess we got to keep going, right? What else can we do? Hopefully we at least get a bit of a flicker out of the board. Now, sometimes I know I've said that the power supplies are a good substitute, but sometimes nothing takes over for a real power supply from the game. Okay, let's try it. Ready? Oh, we're not plugged in, so that might be a good idea. You ready? 3, 2, 1. Don't! Oh, that sucks, eh? All right, let me just fool around with the ground, because that sometimes wakes it up. Okay, let's try. Let's go. We got to go back to basics, I guess. Let's try to make sure that the reset circuit is working. Oh, it's strong. Okay, so that tells me this section's working. Now, this chip, here's the biggest problem right now. These two are the chips that came out of originally with the board, okay? This one is soldered. Okay. You're not going to believe this. Chip I tried to save. Well, I decided, you know what, let me take it out, put in some other unknown chips to see if they're going to work. When I took it out, that leg came off. So, fortunately, these are garbage. So, threw some Playboys in here. Matching set. What do you think's going to happen? Fixed. Winner chicken dinner. Oh, all right. So, okay, I wasn't holding out too much hope, to be honest with you. Oh wow, what a bummer. So it ended up being, well, these two up here, because they were no good. Notice that there's some different chips on the boards as well. U7, 8, 10, 11, and the CPU are known working chips off a working board, so I wanted to eliminate that possibility as well. But it ended up being those two masked ROMs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, well, 6 including the flash, right? So there's a quick 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, this board is fixed. Wow. I'm pretty happy about that. You know, you can end up chasing your tail for days. You know, this is a bit suspect here because of all the gray. Yeah, so here's another way of just doing a quick boot. Disconnect the ground, reconnect it. Two, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, well, we saved another one from the trash. I'm really excited about this being done. Next steps is we got to replace these connectors, and all this copper, I'm actually going to paint it with some nail polish. Hopefully my wife or my daughter, whoever I took this from, doesn't get upset. Too bad it wasn't the same green, but whatever. It's just to keep it from reoxidizing. And you won't see it in this episode, but you will see it in another one when I put this into a KISS, because I ended up finding the proper KISS ROMs. But You know, history is going to hopefully not repeat itself. I don't know if you can see it, but on the lower chip right here, yeah, there's a blob of solder holding the leg on, but it works. So, Russians, you know what? Long video, I know. I just tried to get into as much detail as I could because when I first fixed my first board, real quick, the first board I ever fixed, it was this transistor, one of the legs was rotted off. So I went to my local electronics store, bought this whatever it is, Q1. I didn't even have a soldering iron. I used a blowtorch and a nail to literally jam the new transistor in, put the game on, turn it on, and bang, and it worked. And I thought, wow. And that was back in 2008. So I think my skill set has definitely gotten better since then. But again, if I hadn't done that, if I hadn't taken that whatever $2 chance, I wouldn't have been as involved with the hobby as I am today. And it's very rewarding, you know, not necessarily financially, but just spiritually, if you can believe it. You really feel positive when you get something like this done. So to that end, I'm gonna sign off, but I'm gonna show you real quick what we got going on with this kiss. So the body is done. There's the coin door from the last episode of redoing the coin door, and then here is the back of the brand new playfield that's going in this thing. And there's the playfield way over there. The one we did printed direct to wood. That'll be on the next one. So I guess just stay tuned, and much more to follow. Like, share, subscribe, comment. Really appreciate everybody's support. Rush Fan, over and out.